Straight question. Please press the like button if you think yes, yes, yes. Should Judge Alito go? Should he resign? Should he be stripped of his position on the Supreme Court? Displaying a United States flag upside down is a sign that the country is in distress. It is a symbol which Stop the Steal, well, they used after the last election where they denied a certified election. Trump and co were denying that President Biden had duly been elected. Judge Alito sits on the Supreme Court. He's one of the most powerful people in America and is meant to be neutral.
We have new reporting in the New York Times that I find absolutely staggering. That for days in and around January 17th, 2021, neighbors told the New York Times that Justice Samuel Alito, one of the 9 justices on the Supreme Court, had an American flag hanging upside down outside of his house. That inverted flag was being used as a symbol of the Stop the Steal movement. This is a justice who is very engaged, continues to be, in and around issues concerning Trump's role in the January 6th insurrection. Apparently had a Stop the Steal flag flying outside of his house. He says in a denial, I had no involvement whatsoever in the flying of the flag. It was briefly placed by Mrs. Alito, Martha Ann Alito, in response to a neighbor's use of objectionable and personally insulting language on our yard signs. This is nothing but a neighborhood snafu, a little battle between neighbors. Rachel, do you have thoughts on that news coming against the backdrop of today?
But I feel like the upside down flag, it wasn't like he had a Trump 2024, Trump 2028 flag up there. It was the American flag upside down, which is a traditional symbol of distress. Unless Mrs. Alito was signaling her distress and calling for help, the explanation makes no sense. That was something that people were doing around that time to indicate that the country was effectively under siege in some way, which is what Trump supporters were making the case for when they were describing the election as having been stolen when it wasn't. I mean, Justice Alito has become increasingly unembarrassed about displaying himself as a partisan, as a consumer of partisan narratives and media, and in ruling in ways that is just out loud, all caps, disdainful toward a majority of the country in some cases, or certainly against people who disagree with him. And this fits with that, but it's also something that I've never heard anything like this in the entire history of every controversy I've ever known about with the United States Supreme Court. I think Chief Justice Roberts has a problem on his hands in terms of the behavior of some of the more aggressive justices and those who are really flouting ethics concerns and equanimity concerns with their behavior.
It's a disgrace. We can use those words. We can use the language. The chairman of the Judiciary Committee has had a few words. That's not enough. Again, should Judge Alito resign? Yes or no? Press the like button if you're going yes.
Now let that happen at his own home in one of the most fraught times in American history since the Civil War is just, it's just sad. And it shows how little respect he has for the institution. It shows how little respect he has for the law. It really does. It's disgusting. It's just disgusting.
Willie.
And by the way, we can't overstate the timing of this, which is January 17th, 2021. Think about where we were as a country, still completely shaken by what had happened on January 6th. And a sitting Supreme Court justice has a flag flying upside down at his home that is a symbol of solidarity, as John said, with the Stop the Steal movement. We should explain a little bit.
Apologies if I'm being a bit overdramatic, but the fish's neck is rotting left, right and centre. There's all this stuff, obviously, about Ginny Thomas and Clarence Thomas, and many people say that Clarence Thomas should take a permanent long vacation, but this Alito...
Justice Clarence Thomas is compromised. On January 19th, 2022, Thomas was the only Supreme Court justice willing to help Trump and his allies hide from justice over the January 6th insurrection. Thomas did not hide that he was willing to grant Trump's request for secrecy, but it wasn't just to protect Trump and his conspirators. It was to protect his wife, Ginny Thomas. A radical right-wing activist, Ginny Thomas has openly applauded rebellion in the past.
I think people are rebelling and there's a big tidal wave coming. I think the Democrats are pretty worried about what's coming.
And the lead up to January 6th was no different. Ginny Thomas used her direct line to Trump's White House to push for the overturning of a free and fair election, even attending the rally that would ultimately end in an attack on the U.S. Capitol. None of this would be known if Justice Thomas had gotten his way. The January 6th Commission can't do their job if one of the most powerful men in the country is using his seat to protect his best friend. Clarence Thomas must recuse himself because he took an oath to protect the Constitution, not his wife.
There is no words to describe it. If you have a situation where you have a former president of the United States of America literally challenging every law, saying he can do what he likes because he has, it would appear, a judge in his pocket. This is not a neutral judge. Sorry, it's just not. Again, if you've just watched this and not made a vote, click the like button if you think Judge Alito should go. Simple. Please.
I am beyond disturbed, Joe. You know, I was a law clerk to Justice Blackmun on the United States Supreme Court when this kind of behavior would have been unimaginable. You wouldn't have read about it in a book of fiction. And now this kind of conduct is taking down the Supreme Court. It's
nobody would have believed it if you'd put it in a book of fiction.
No one would have believed it. And Justice Alito should not sit on any of these cases involving Donald Trump. He ought to recuse himself. And here is the challenge to Chief Justice Roberts. The United States Supreme Court's credibility is plummeting.
All-time low.
Completely.
Lower than perhaps even the United States Congress, and that's saying something. Mm-hmm. And it is due to the Supreme Court's own self-inflicted wounds. Alito and Thomas directly involved in the January 6th insurrection. Now they're going to sit on cases involving pivotal legal questions. Absolutely unthinkable. And I think that Chief Justice Roberts has to take leadership of this court. He has to tell these two justices that they have no business sitting on the court. It will still be able to decide the cases, but not with Justices Alito and Thomas, because by virtue of flying that flag upside down, whether it was his wife or not, it's his home. And Justice Thomas, through his wife Ginny, being involved in helping to organize the insurrection, both have a very direct interest here.
Yeah, they wanted. The other thing that stuck out for me in that decision was Justice Alito's language that Roe versus Wade, and I'll quote him here, was egregiously wrong from the start. So presumably that means the start back in 1973. Well, after that start, while Roe was egregiously wrong, Alito came before this committee. And he had the chance to tell us that he thought Roe was egregiously wrong, make that observation about that case, and instead he hid that sentiment. He said instead, Roe versus Wade is an important precedent of the Supreme Court. It was decided in 1973, so it has been on the books for a long time. It is a precedent that has been on the books for several decades. It has been challenged. It has been reaffirmed. No egregiously wrong. Everything designed to reassure us that he was not going to overturn that decision. So looking back, he looks a lot like a sleeper agent predetermined to attack Roe, who wouldn't disclose what he was up to until he had the majority that he needed to change the legal standard and destroy the legal precedent.
He did not recuse himself from this case. And in fact, he used his seat on the Supreme Court after all of this to rule in Singer's favor. And following the decision, Mr. Singer's hedge fund was ultimately paid $2.4 billion because of this ruling. Not a bad return on investment for a fishing trip there. Now, Professor Clark, would a federal judge in a lower court be required to recuse himself?
The gentlelady's time has expired.
May I answer the question, sir?
I think the discretion of the chair, yes, you can answer
Thank
the
you,
question.
sir. Yes, there's a federal statute, I believe it's 28 U.S.C. 455, that does require recusal by both justices and judges under certain circumstances.
Thank you. And
Judge Alito is a distinguished legal professional who serves on the Supreme Court of the United States. He is known for his thoughtful approach to interpreting the law and his commitment to upholding the Constitution. Judge Alito's decisions have had a significant impact on a wide range of legal issues, shaping the laws that affect people's daily lives. His role on the Supreme Court gives him the responsibility of making important decisions that can influence the course of American history. By carefully examining cases and applying his expertise, Judge Alito helps ensure that justice is served and that the rights of individuals are protected. His dedication to the law and his commitment to fairness make him a key figure in the American justice system.